Welcome, and are we all in for a treat today? We have a very special speaker, and I'll talk about her in a couple minutes. First, if there's anyone new here, you can sign on the outside for a flyer and email me some of our information. We're here because most of us anyway are followers of Sai Baba. And Sai Baba says embodiments of love. Well, tonight our message is it's all about love. And I'm not Bob Zani. Bob Zani says the same thing. But when you talk about embodiments of love, you're talking about our core, who we really are. Sai Baba also says something else, very important. He says, I am God, but you are God too. So we're all on a spiritual journey to find out who we are, who this Godness is inside each of us. And we're all on our own personal journey, spiritual journey. Gwyn McGee will be talking about it in a couple of minutes. Two very special people who have a very close relationship with God, a very close relationship with Baba. So I'll be talking more about that in a minute. But first we're going to have a reading. Senka, right here. Manawara. Let's welcome Senka. All right. Good deal.
Good evening, everyone. Sarah. This is from Such As I Speaks, Volume 5. Swami is mainly talking about, this is part of a speech that was given in 1965, and it's mainly to do with mental equanimity and service. The most precious possession is mental equanimity, and it is the one thing you cannot give, even if you have it. Each has to acquire it the hard way. But you can enlighten people of the disciplines through which mental equanimity can be gained. And shanti, or peace, can be won. It cannot be earned through a higher standard of life, like expensive shirts, transistors, sofas, air conditioners, etc. It cannot be got through riches, through the acquisition of power and authority, through developing physical strength and endurance. When you plan for service, remember this estimate of comparative values. The rich, the healthy, the strong, the powerful, the influential, all are afflicted with discontent, worry, fear, and anxiety. They have no peace of mind. Peace comes from within. Contentment is a mental condition. Do not feed the roots of attachment to worldly comforts more than what is absolutely necessary. They lead only to anxiety and fear. They can never satisfy the innermost craving of man. Lead them into the path of devotion and dedication. That will be for them the path of content and joy. Emphasize the universal oneness principle. Encourage prayer, meditation, quiet contemplation, and the grandeur and glory of God, reflected in nature. Repetition of the name of the Lord. Encourage silence and solitude for the sake of introspection and contact with the springs of joy inherent in man. And he goes on to say, you're all educated persons, experienced in many fields of activity, equipped with many skills and capabilities. You are animated by genuine enthusiasm to help others. You are encouraged by the example of other clubs and service organizations to take up many schemes which will benefit the community. These are great assets. Heart has to meet heart so that service may succeed. Speak soft and sweet. Be soft and sweet. sympathy and with no pretense, no artificiality. Keep away from impure listening, impure acts, impure words, impure thoughts, everything that contaminates the will to serve and the skill to serve. Thank you, Sarah.
When Sanka first came in today, he told me a story about it's a friend, and as we got into Gwyn, McGee, and the wonderful things that have happened, he told me the most amazing story too. And that's what this is all about. This is about sharing, and this is about knowing God and wonderful experiences that happen. Why don't you share that one thing that you told me?
Well, my mom came along too, and so we just stopped by at our friend's house, which is like keeping right here, second row. So I dropped my mom off, and obviously I had to stop the car. And about half an hour later, I got ready to come here, and the car just did not start. It's just dead. It's just perfect. Half an hour ago, and all of a sudden it just stopped. So it didn't start. I tried my best, and fortunately, it came home just in time to bring me here. So I have to be here for a very important event, and all of a sudden the car doesn't work. It's in perfect running condition. So it's one of those challenges that indicates that we need to completely surrender. Oh yes, that's right. Keith, our dear family friend here, about 12 years ago, his wife is an ardent devotee of Swami, and she just completed her morning prayers and wanted Swami to come to her in some way, in a profound way, so that she can be guided through the day, through important decisions. And as soon as she finished that little thought, Swami appeared in form and walked through two rooms, through one room, and came to the prayer room that she was at. And so she saw Swami that day. And he didn't speak to her, but he came in a very profound way and smiled at her, and she was very happy afterwards. That was her first profound sighting of Swami.
The person who's going to be coming up is McGee. She's been a journalist, written for radio, for TV. She's an author. She's authored more than 15 books. She's a side devotee. And how this happened and how she got herself in this position that she's been in is amazing. And the people that she's been able to write about. And she'll be talking about two people in particular. One is Barossa. And I know some people out here have met Barossa. If you've met Barossa, seen her, please raise your hand. Anybody who's met Barossa? Good. And the other lady is Shri in South San Francisco. Anybody here who's seen Shri in South San Francisco? Good. Fantastic. The most amazing things happen. And Gwyn, as she's done it, and I'm sure she's asked herself many times, why me? And I don't know if she's going to be able to answer that or not. But she spent time, 22 weeks with, she calls Borosima, in writing a book. And she spent just as many weeks with Sri Lal in South Pasadena, closely aligned with both of these. She's writing another book too, which she will also talk about. Let's welcome Gwyn McGee.
Salam, everyone. Salam. It's all about love. It's all about love. It's all about love. Love is God. God is love. And God is one with man. Dick sang that a bhajan yesterday with me under some very special circumstances, which I'll hopefully have time to share with you. But that tells us that we all are one with divinity, that the divine shines through us in various ways according to the journey that we are on with God, and how Baba will work with us. And it just so happens that my talk today will be about some uniquely profound ways that Baba is sharing his love, his divinity through some individuals. He shows it through all of us, but with some people, it has such amazing, amazing, tangible results. And that's what this talk will be about today. It will be about my journey to Baba, which was obviously for me one that I was absolutely set to do what I'm doing today, that I would write the books that I've written about Barosama and Sri Lanka. You know, I think about how many times have we called on Baba? How many times can you imagine that Baba has been called by us? How we have called him up when we're in pain, when we're hurting, when we're hoping for something, when we want something. And at this moment, I'm going to call on Baba in the way of a song, so that he can join me in my heart. He's already here, but I want him to know how much I love him and how much I want him to help me as I share with you. My sweet Lord, Sai Baba, oh my Lord, Sai Baba, my sweet Lord, Sai Baba, I really want to see you, Sai Baba, I really want to be with you, oh Baba, I really want to see you, Lord, but it takes so long, my Lord, Sai Baba, my sweet Lord, Sai Baba, oh Lord, Sai Baba, I really want to know you, Sai Baba, I really want to go with you, oh Baba, I really want to show you, Lord, and it won't take long, my Lord, Sai Baba, oh Lord, Sai Baba, come, my Lord, Sai Baba, come, Lord, Sai Baba, come, my Lord, Sai Baba, come, my Lord. And so we call on Baba. We call on him, and he calls on us as well. He calls on us to do the job that he knows that our souls have come to do. And this is my story about how I have come on this journey of sharing Baba's love in such unique ways. You know, it really started, I've been a person who's been spiritually inclined for a long time. Actually born a Christian, practiced Buddhism, practiced Islam, and at a very unique point in my life, a life-altering event really turned my head. Single mom I was at the time with 2 children, and I was asleep. And in the middle of the night, actually in the middle of the morning, 4:30 in the morning, I heard some noises. And I thought it was my daughter perhaps going to the bathroom. And I called her name. And I said, Naima, is that you? And a man turned a flashlight on in my face as I lie in the bed. He had the flashlight in my face and a hammer over his head. And I woke to that at 4:30 in the morning. I was a news reporter at the time. And I had covered many crime seminars, what you do when you're, when there's a criminal, what you are to do. But to awaken to that was just unreal, as you can imagine. This man said, give me your money. I was so poor at the time, I didn't have a checking account. I had all my little money with me. It was really interesting because my first thought was to save my money. So what I did was the room was small, the bed was here, there was a closet door here where I hung my purses. I took one of the purses off of the knob. I knew there was no money in it, but I acted as if there was. And the man said, don't play with me, lady. Well, when he said that, I could see how unstable he was, how he was sweating. He just looked really, really unstable. And I thought about the crime seminars I had covered, and they say, give them what they want. So I said, okay, I'm going to give him my money. I had a little bit of money in the real purse. But what was so amazing, that God's grace was already with me, and I didn't know it. For the first time that I could ever recall, I had taken my bill money out of my purse that night and slid it underneath a platter on my dresser. And I dressed that night in a brand new gown, head to toe. Truthfully speaking, I would dress in anything to go to bed. But that night, brand new gown, head to toe. So I gave this man what money I had by shaking my purse out, and coins just rolled onto the bed. And then he was like, he took that, that's not enough, I shook it some more. There was nothing else coming out. Then the man said, he had another thought, lay back, take off your clothes. Well, you know, living a life of what I felt was a good mother, a celibate life, I thought about what was about to happen. And I was like, I couldn't take the thought of that. And I remember this energy came in my solar plexus. And all I know is I can sincerely tell you, I feel like I know how it feels when you want to kill someone. I wanted to kill this man. And all I remember was I let out this scream that sounded like an animal. It didn't sound like me. And I put my hand up to try to keep him from hitting me with the hammer. And that's all I recall. The next thing I knew, I was chasing the man out of my bedroom. He was running out of the house. I ran after him. You know, the man ran out the door, crossed my yard, jumped the fence, and I did the same thing. I was out of my mind. I ran after the man, 4:30 in the morning, in my gown. We're running down the street, and all of a sudden, like on a dime, this man stopped, and I stopped. It was like telepathy. He was probably no further than that speaker right there. And we looked at each other, and the message was clear. Why am I running from her? I'm the criminal. I've got the hammer. And just like in the old-time cartoons, he started chasing me down. So he turned, and I'm running. I'm trying to run on air by now. You know, I've fallen twice in the street. The third time I fell, I just laid there. And he stopped again, and he looked at me. I looked at him. This time I did not get up. He ran off. And I got up. I didn't cuss him out, any of that. I started talking about karma. What karma have you created? What is this? And the man kept going. Well, all I remember at that point, my mind was so jumbled. I remember getting my kids. I must have called the police. And I got them out, and I put them in my car. And I pulled out my driveway, and I sat in the street with the running car with my kids in it. Policeman came. He asked me, is there someone in the house? I said, no. And so I remember going in with him. I saw how the man had gotten in. He had broken the glass, just really simple, but locked. Opened it. But when we got to my bedroom, we stood in the doorway together, and I remember he felt so big to me. He felt so much of a protector. And we looked at my bedroom, and it was torn up. It was torn up. A tornado had been in there. And the policeman said to me, was there a struggle in here? I said, no. And he looked at me again, and he looked. There was no struggle in here. I said, no, I didn't remember any of it. And he shook his head, and he's like, you know, okay. That night, I didn't sleep. I never slept in the house again with my children. I couldn't. And I remember when the detective called me the next day, he asked me had I seen the headlines. And it was on one of the local papers. Well, I say headlines. Actually, it was just the title of one of the articles, and it was, a woman had been bludgeoned to death that night. And he said to me, lady, you are very, 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 very lucky. It don't go down like this. I'll never forget that. And I knew that I had been protected, but I still was angry at God. I was angry. I was angry because I was trying to live a good life. I was trying to provide for my children. And I was trying to wait for the right man in my life. And this happened. So I was really upset. And for 3 days, I remember, I raged at God. It would just hit me in my heart. And I would scream at the top of my lungs. If I am living under the law of karma, I want the law of grace, and I want it now. I didn't even really know about the law of grace, but it just came out of me, just as that power of Kali came out and chased the criminal with a hammer away. You know, that's just amazing when I think about that now. 30 days to the day when that gentleman broke in on me, criminal broke in on me, I met my husband that I've been married to now for 25 years. 30 days to the day. And it's associated with my marriage to Larry that I met Baba. One of my friends, a really beautiful spiritual woman that I respected a lot, had gone to India and met Baba. I didn't know that though. She was going to perform the wedding ceremony for us, and it was going to be outside. And I went into her meditation room just to talk about wedding preparations. And as I'm looking around the room, there was this photograph of this man with an afro, I said, you know. And she was a Caucasian lady. And I was like, who's that guy? Oh, he's God. When she said that, you know, I kind of thought that's an interesting thing to say. But she said he's an avatar, and she explained Baba to me in a few words. And because I respected her so much spiritually, I just accepted it. She gave me a small container. She had been to Puttaparthi. She said she'd been to India and received this for booty. And so she gave me a container for booty, and I took it with me. We got married perhaps 3 weeks later. And I got married in Memphis, Tennessee in September. And Memphis in September is normally very, very beautiful. The weather is just gorgeous. Well, on the day of our wedding, it was horrible. It was so bad that nothing but weather was on the news, on the television. It took over all the channels. And literally black outside in the middle of the day. And so my husband-to-be and his best man were outside trying to put chairs down for intended guests, all of that. They were coming in, warming their hands, drinking coffee. It was really bad. It was raining, it was black, it was ugly. And I'm thinking, how am I going to get married? If what I'm doing is blessed by God, how am I going to get married in this? We don't have room for the guests. Everything's supposed to be outside. And so I thought of this Sai Baba that Laverne McCarran, my spiritual friend, had told me about. And I started calling on Sai Baba for the first time. And I mean, I'm dramatic, so I'm calling on him. I'm not calling on him quietly. I'm calling on him. Baba, Sai Baba, if they say the right things about you, if you are who they say you are, you can blow this away with a breath. I mean, I'm getting really, really dramatic. And I went on like that for a while. Lo and behold, we would be married at 5:30. The house that my husband was living in at the time that we were getting married on the lake outside in the back was a contemporary townhouse and had these long rectangular windows near the ceiling. I looked outside and I couldn't believe what I saw. As if someone had drawn a line as straight as an arrow across the sky. There was blue on this side and black on that. There wasn't a cloud sticking out. There was nothing but the line of delineation. And as my wedding came into being, the people were sitting outside with their little T-straps. It was beautiful. And my husband and his best man never forgot that day because it was so extraordinary. And people even mentioned how rapidly, how strangely the weather had changed. I was astounded. And I was so amazed by the Sai Baba that I determined that same Labooty, that I would take it on my honeymoon with me, which was Paris, France, and I would meet somebody in Paris who knew Sai Baba. We're in Paris, probably a week. Nobody came up to us to speak to us because, it just wasn't that kind of a city. But that was okay, we're on a honeymoon. But at one point, we got lost in the bowels of the subway system in Paris. I feel we were lost. My husband says we just were confused, but we were lost. And we're down in the bowels of the system. We're looking at a map on the wall. And somebody behind us asked us, can they help us? Now, he spoke in French, and I took French from 6th grade to 12th grade when I was growing up. It was a special program, so I understood. And turned around, and there's this guy standing there. He's tall, very, very dark skinned, straight black hair. He looked like an Indian. And so I asked him in French, did he speak English? Could he speak English? And he said yes, and he began to speak English. And he asked us again, can you help us? My husband was a little hesitant, but then I guess he really thought about it. We needed help. And he said what we needed. And the gentleman said, I can help you, come with me. We ended up going further into the system. We got on an escalator that led us down to the train. And my husband was below me, I was in the middle, and the man was above me as we were traveling down the escalator. And I looked at him and I said, you know, you don't look like you're from France. He says, I'm not from France, I'm from India. And I said, what part of India? Because, you know, Sai Baba is now coming up in my mind. And he said, the south of India. And I said, do you know Sai Baba? And he said, do you know Sai Baba? and then he raised his hand and he showed me a ring. And he said, many people believe in Baba in India. He gave me this ring. I was so amazed. And I started babbling about the vibhuti and my birds and all these things. And my husband's jaw is dropping and what's going on. And that man helped us all the way to the train, got on the train with us, and showed us where to get off, which was like 2 stops later. And as we were leaving, he was going from window to window, waving goodbye. How he got from window to window, when I think about it now, is amazing. But so that was my introduction to Sai Baba. And as powerful as that is, and as much as it warms my heart right now, do you believe it that I did not think of Baba again until 13 years later? Baba even came in my dream that first night that I was introduced to him by Laverne in a meditation room. He came in a white gown, his white gown, which all the years he was in his body, for me, in my dreams, he always came in white. And that first dream, he came in white, he was standing by a chair, it was like he was inviting me to sit. And there was a rose on the back of the chair and a necklace that was being extended. All of that Baba did in calling me. And it took me 13 years for me to pay attention to Baba again. You know, Baba waits for us, doesn't he? His love is so profound. He shows his love because he is love. And he wants us to know that we are love as well. He wants us to awaken to that love. And his patience is immense. And he surely had a lot of patience with me. The next time I brought Sai Baba was in Salt Lake City, Utah, where my husband and I were living. And actually, it was really interesting. I had been an author, had written 13 novels, and I was on my way to get a pedicure. I was going to get this pedicure at a shop that was really quite unique for me. The lady was a wonderful soul. The first time I discovered her shop, it was closed. I looked inside, it was decorated with Indian decor, and it was just gorgeous, gorgeous. And I went in and introduced myself to her at another time, made my appointment. When I saw some of the decorations, I walked around with her and we discussed them, and then I saw there was a shelf, and it had some photographs of Sai Baba. And I said, that's Sai Baba. She said, yes, you know Baba? So of course there was an instant connection. She didn't talk about it a lot to me that day, but that awakened my feelings about Baba. Feelings that I didn't really know I had. It just awakened that I knew he was special. So on the day that I was going for the pedicure, I was walking down the street. I had taken a bus because it was downtown Salt Lake, and the bus was, the stop where I got off was just a few blocks away from the spa where I was going. I'm walking down the street, there's nobody but me, and I'm looking at the roses because it's so beautiful, lots of roses in Salt Lake. And I hear a voice out of the blue say, you are going to write a book. It's not going to be like the others, and it's going to be called The Altar. I couldn't believe it. I'm not clairaudient, No one claims that would claim me, but I heard the voice very clearly. It sounded as if the person was just right next to me. And because I didn't know what to do with that, I just put it on the back burner of my mind. I could not understand how I would have heard a voice when there was nobody there. And because it wasn't logical, I got rid of it. I put it on the back burner. I went on to the spa, got there, and this lady who was normally very, very calm, very tranquil, was a little hyper. And she's running the water for me for my pedicure, and she tells me that I received a message from you in my meditation. Oh, you did? Yes. You're going to write a book. She said, I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm thinking, what is going on? And she said, it's going to be a book about Barossa. And I said, what's a Barossa? I didn't even, it was so hard. Here it is, and then, my mind is really overdrive. I hear a voice, now a woman who I barely know is telling me she's received this message about a book, and it's going to be about Barossa. Well, quickly she left out, and she came back with a book. And it was Connie Shaw's book, Wake Up Laughing. There is interior photographs, any of you who have read that book. And one of the photographs was this one, Barossa's altar in Nepal. And remember the voice said, I would write a book and it would be called The Altar. I was so amazed by this, that even though I was slow, I wasn't that slow. I knew there was a connection. I knew that Sai Baba was saying something to me. I knew the power of Sai Baba. And I knew at that point that I was going to follow these breadcrumbs where he was leading me. Just so happened, Jan knew Barossa's daughter. Barossa's daughter lived in Salt Lake City, Utah. And she frequented the bhajans that Barossa's daughter held. And she asked me, did I want to come? I'm like, sure, I want to come. And she also told me that Barossa would be coming to Salt Lake City within a couple of months. Wow, do you want to meet her? Do you want to interview her? She knew that I had been a reporter. She knew I was a writer. Sure, absolutely. And so here it is. I'm on this journey already that Bob has set forth. We started going to the bhajans at Sujata and Sarit's house in Salt Lake City. And it was a time of sharing. I didn't talk a lot because they had so much to share. They talked about, Barossa, the things that had happened through the years. I looked at photographs that had Vibhuti and Kumkum, these blessings. And I'm saying, well, how did this happen with this person, with this woman? And they told me how she had died, and then Baba had brought her back to life. That Baba had literally called her to Puttaparthi, and had literally, with the energetics of his splendor, and he said, I am going to charge Barossa. That he looked at Barossa as she was in Puttaparthi, and the splendor of Baba's glory, she fainted. Barossa fainted, literally went to cardiac arrest, and literally died in Puttaparthi. Baba came on the other side, I was told. She remembers seeing him, and he signed her out on a book. He signed her out on a judgment book. You hear all these stories about what happens on the other side. Barossa's story is an amazing story. She remembers it all. She recalled what Baba did. And this is the story they were relating to me. Also, there was something Baba did on her finger while she was on the other side. It was like an injection, they told me. And when Barossa came back into her body, that literally was on her finger. A point where it looked like an injection was on her index finger. So there was physical proof that something had taken place. So these were the kind of stories that I was listening to, and I was so grateful to be in that position. And so I decided to try to tell them a story about my association with Sai Baba because, the little bit that I had, because there was a photograph, this one, that hung on their wall. This image is the image of the ring that the man in Paris had when he showed it to me. I would never forget it. It it was so unique. So I'm telling them about, I'm looking at their house and I'm like, oh, do all Sai Baba devotees have that photograph or have that image? And they're kind of looking at each other strangely. What is she talking about? There's a language barrier we were having anyway, but this was just adding to it. And I repeated myself, that image, do all devotees, like the chair that you told me about, that's for Baba in the budget room, do all devotees have that image? And they say, no, that is the image of perhaps 2 rings in the world that Baba says he made. And he made this one for my father, Sujata told me, Rameshji. This is the image of his ring. Once again, the crumbs that Baba dropped along the way, that he's showing me, there is a connection here. And I was beginning to pay attention. I was beginning to know and feel that there was something that Baba really wanted me to do. And it was to pay attention, to be open to the miracles that were obviously beginning to unfold around the Rebel family in Barosama. When Barosama came, this is Barosama and her husband Rameshji, many things happened in the Rebel's home. As you can see here, this was the puja room. Huge. The vibhuti that came and sticking to Baba's life-size photograph. That was huge. This was large. All this came like overnight. This that says Rama on Shirdi Sai Baba. There was a constant flow of miracles. And when you come across something like this and you're not accustomed to it, the logical mind will not rest. I have to say I was very, very questioning of what was going on. I wondered if they were doing it. I wondered if Sujata was doing it. How can you trust something of this nature? I was just introduced to Sai Baba. But this was the kind of thing that was happening around Barosama. Barosama was doing healings on people. And there were times when there were lots of people in the room or who came, who had cancer or things of that nature, you could see her body was absorbing it. You could see her literally becoming weaker after 2 or 3 days of that. And I recall once she fainted. And I was concerned about her. I was very concerned about her. But what I got to witness was Baba's love in another way. Because once it looked like she was totally saturated with the toxins, the diseases that she was taking in, because Baba told her to have a new life, to have been given the new life that he had given her, that she had to, for the public welfare, she had to heal people. This was the price of a new life that he had given her. I got to witness what I call the renewal of Barossa. She would look like this, the last one. Can you go back for me, please? She would look just very, very tired. And the next day, she'd look like a brand new penny. When I tell you brand new, there would be like just an absolutely spiritual energy around her. She would look beautiful. So I got to witness this renewal of Barossa over and over again. The love that Barossa had for Baba, because he had given her a new life. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if you literally had died and you know Baba has brought you back to life? What would you do for Baba? How much of a submission would you have to Baba's will? How much would your heart be open to his love? He is in all of us. But I believe, and I don't have all the answers by any stretch, but I believe because of what she experienced, that there was just total submission to the oneness with Baba. And as a result of that, the miracles and Baba's energy, his divinity shines through so, so clearly, and the experiences are had around Barossa. We began to have what we call the banana fast effect. The banana fast. Literally, people would bring bananas, flowers, apples, whatever, something to offer on the altar. And messages began to come for those of us who were coming for the puja. Personal messages. Before people got there, sometimes, because after a while the banana fast got so hot with messages, Baba was sending messages. Do you see all that? You see the writing here? You see English here? Baba was sending the messages, and it wasn't like if you were to scratch it on a banana. If you were to try this, you scratch it on the banana, and the pen would, you could barely see it. It would take a couple of days maybe for it to blacken. But this would blacken immediately. It was like a laser, and it would come in all at one time, straight as an arrow. You could have as many as 5. You could turn this all the way around, and messages. People's names, situations in their lives. Before someone arrived, the name was given, the situation that they were having. Please, he said, my devotees, love my devotees. Take care of my devotees. This is what he would tell Sujata and the family. So this was the kind of thing that was happening around Barossa. Baba was showing his divinity was shining through Barossa because of the bhakti. And I believe as well, because I have not been a person who has been so much a part of the centers. The door that Baba introduced me through was the door of this home, really. So this is how he opened my eyes to who he was. And what I felt most in that kind of arena, in that situation, in that home, in that room, was the love, the singing. Oh my God, singing for Baba. And I believe that kind of love is what allowed and allows Baba to show these kinds of tangible miracles in our lives. It's just amazing. It's really, really, really amazing. And so that's what I was experiencing with the Barossa. Ends up that I got to go to Kathmandu with Barossa. I got to go to where she lived. I think I should share this first. I'm glad I have pictures to remind me. Barossa came to my home. She was going to homes, individuals' homes. People are inviting, please come, please come. And so she said she would come to my home. I was extremely excited because I knew Baba is coming. You know, you go to the grocery store at the time, and once Ohms came on bananas in the grocery store as she walks through. Can you imagine? We're kind of turning our backs, you know. Now they're Ohms, the symbol of the Ohm on the bananas. So I knew when Barossa was coming to my home that the energy of Baba was coming with her, that Baba's love, his divinity, the divinity that is one with all of us, would be in my home. So I cleaned like I'd never cleaned before. And my poor little altar, so meticulous. You know, Baba's coming. I know Baba will come. Baba, please come. Maybe you'll give me a little bit of booty. Maybe you will, you know, because I had heard how in some houses Barossa would just walk in the room or through the door, and boom, there'd be boom, there'd be a booty. In some houses it would take 30 minutes, and maybe Baba would do a little sprinkle. So, oh my God, will that show what my heart is like, Baba? Is that what this is about? So I tried to prepare as much as I could. And so on my small altar, I had just begun to gather pictures of Baba from the devotees who were coming to Sujata's home. And these are some of the vibhuti that came on my small altar. I never will forget it. Barossa Ma just sat in my little space, and she said something to Rameshji and saying she felt it was very sweet what I had put together. And sure enough, she said, you know, so let her say a prayer. I walked out and went and sat down and see the monkey mind jumps in. Then it's like, oh, is this her moment for taking out the vibhuti and throwing it? You know, this is my thought, being honest. And so, but this is what was left in my altar space. They weren't there very long. And I remember Barossa Ma got up because they were going to go to someone else's home. And she went to my front door. So I was somewhat with her. Everybody else was still kind of doing their thing. We had a small condo at the time. And Barossa Ma said, I smell. And when she says, I smell, she can smell when the manifestations come in. It's a sacred fragrance. So what happened? We scattered like rabbits, you know. My husband, Rameshji, Sujata went into the office. I went to my altar. I'm looking, nothing more. I couldn't see anything. She never left the door. She's standing at the door. And so then she looked, and right behind my head, I had just looked at this particular image, this Krishna Radha, which was right behind my head, and there's vibhuti now. I'm like, Oh my goodness. And then I hear a scream from my office. Oh, Gwyn, Sister Jackie, you got to come. Oh my God, Gwyn. And Baba had blessed my computer. Baba had blessed my computer. Baba knew I would be writing about him, that I would be sharing what I'm sharing with you today, sharing how he shows his love and divinity through many ways, and our divinity through many ways, and ways that just fill our hearts with joy and absolute bliss. I was absolutely stunned by this one. And Rameshji said, oh, I think this is very special. Baba has never blessed in our presence an inanimate object, and especially one that didn't have anything to do with divinity or religion, not a murti. They were very, very amazed by this. What was Rosamond doing? She was standing at the door, smiling sweetly. That was it. So this is how I also was another one of the breadcrumbs that I said, because of Rameshji's help as well. I think Baba's blessing your work. I never forgot that. I never forgot this aspect of how Baba was showing me that I would be doing something that would inspire others. I ended up going, as I said earlier, to Kathmandu. That was an amazing time. This is the entrance to what they now call Bharosa Leya. Bharosa, for me, means faith, and a vote of faith. And so this is like the entrance, and so much happens there. So much. The divine facts is one of the most interesting things I've ever seen in my life. It was manifesting turmeric. Baba manifested some turmeric. And at first, Rameshji said it was just kind of, after a while, there were so many manifestations going on of Baba showing the divinity that he is, and that he is omnipresent, and that he was not just in the body in Puttaparthi. All this was going on at the time when Baba's in Puttaparthi. But many of us have had experiences with Baba being in Puttaparthi, but seeing him elsewhere. So this is another example of that. The divine facts, the turmeric, Rameshji said after a while the turmeric was just sitting in a pile, and he thought, this should be honored. This is Baba. People had come and looked at it, and it had begun to accumulate some debris, so he cleared that out. And he said he decided, as he was clearing it out, he put it on a sheet just to clear out the particles of things. And he was wiping it over, and he saw something come in it, a symbol. And it was a symbol of the Om. And then he said, I'm just making that up. And he said he wiped it again, and the Om came back. And he said he thought, maybe there's something here. And said, I'm going to leave it. And he wiped it. And then from that day or the next days, Baba put every symbol of every religion on the divine facts. And that's how the divine facts came to be. And to this day, I speak with Bharosa Rameshji perhaps every 3 weeks, finding out what's happened there. They have installed the first life-size murti of Satya Sai Baba in Nepal. The first life-size one. It's beautiful. And Baba still writes on the divine facts. He still writes messages. I just spoke with him, 3 days ago, Wednesday actually. My time is kind of getting away from me being here in California. And he wrote down the names of the people that should accompany Bharosa to Puttaparthi for Krishna's birthday. He does it every year. And different names of people come on there, and those people get to go and experience Baba and Puttaparthi with Bharosa. And so the divine facts is working very finely. This is a Shiva that was manifested, the entire murti. It's about, I guess I would say I saw it perhaps maybe a foot tall. Lots of Buddha, you can see that. But there's hair growing out of Shiva's head. I said hair, yes I did. Both sides, you can barely see it here, but on both sides, and it has thickened. There was a group of young men who, from Atlanta, went to Nepal and got to go to Bharosa Leya. And he had photographs, and I compared them to my earlier photographs of the Shiva. When I visited, the hair is thickening. And this is just the altar there. the charm. I was standing there when the handprints came. So much happens there. Baba's love. The jumping jasmine flower. Every morning, new flowers are put on this manifested, and you can barely see it, but this is the manifested Shiva Lingam. And the flowers are collected from outside, put there, and a jasmine flower always makes its way to the top, jumps on top, and it balances precariously on top. That happens every day. To this day, it happens. Baba's love. Baba has never gone anywhere. He's not gone. You can imagine my knowing all this, but with my knowing all this, even when Baba left his body, it gave me great comfort to know that these things were going on, continued to go on. I knew Baba would never leave because I know who Baba is, but still the miracles that were happening grounded me more in the knowledge of, my God, my Baba, he is always and forever. You know, a lot of things happened after my first visits to Kathmandu. Personal struggles, my dealing with my own need for cleansing, personal relationships, and it took a while. I could not, even though I had got permission from Barosama and Rameshji to write the book about Barosama, it took me 7 years before I wrote it. My logical mind just had to digest this stuff, you know? I believed it, my heart believed it, but my mind was was having a difficult time. And so 7 years before I wrote the story, and actually Baba put me in a corner, and that's why I wrote it. There was some life-threatening situations again. My husband, something happened with him, and a new grandbaby that had come in my life, both at the same time, kind of stress that your heart can barely take. And I remember telling Baba that, Baba, if you allow them to get through this, I will write whatever you want me to write. I won't have an ego about what people will say about me in writing these kinds of stories. Is she gullible? Is she stupid? Does she, I don't care. If you allow this, Baba, I will do whatever you want, Swami, please. And Baba let them get through, and I got started with the book. And so I wrote Barosama, 22 Weeks with Divinity. But in writing Barosama, 22 Weeks with Divinity, that year, 2009, before I actually self-published it, the other books I've written were published out of New York, traditional publishing. The books that I've written about Baba have been self-published. I ended up meeting Barosama and Rameshji and 42 Nepalese devotees in the party. And this was an amazing situation for me. Baba blessed me again. He blessed me with vibhuti in my hair. We were, Barosama can see Baba when he comes. And Baba was in the wheelchair at that time. But he was, visiting people, as he does. He arranges everything when you go to the party. And so she could see him. And so I remember she knew he had come into their small apartment. And she wanted me to experience Baba's love. So she told me, you sit and you chant. So I'm in front of the small altar. You can barely, it was this, I was very small, literally small corner. And I, along with Madhavi and a few others who were chanting, and Baba put the booty in my hair. And he put the booty in Madhavi's hair too. I really don't even have that photograph of the two of us together. But this is when I got back to my room and I took a photograph. This is me. I'm taking a photograph of the booty in my hair. I was so amazed because I knew she had thrown that in my hair. So it's like, okay, even though I trust her implicitly by then. And then other things occurred. One amazing thing for me. This lady here, Madhavi, her husband made his transition many years ago. And Baba was manifesting lingams for people from Nepal. They would appear under somebody's pillow or in locked suitcases, things of that nature. And one day we were sitting together, was Madhavi, Barosama, and I, and Barosama's mother. And Barosama stood up and like she was smelling something, and she did this, and then she did this. And so she walked out the door of the apartment. We followed her, and she literally just went around this opening that divided the the apartments themselves. And we went to Montague's small room. And Rosamond stood there, and she pointed at Montague's pillow. And so Montague bent over, picked up the pillow, and there was a lingam there. Okay? So Montague, Rosamond put it to our third eye and all, and I'm just right in there, hanging in there. Okay, what's going on? This is really interesting. And Rosamond took the lingam and started looking in it. It was black to me. And so she motions because of the language barrier, my language limitations. I can't speak, Nepali. And she asked me if I had my camera. And I did have my camera. So I went and got it, and she wanted me, she said, take a picture. I took a picture. She looked, take another. I took another picture. And you can barely see it here. I wish that we had the ability with my iPad. This one, you cannot really see it. But inside of this, we could see two figures. One standing over another that was seated. Baba wrote on a vegetable, later, this one, that Madhavi is holding. We're reading some of it here. Madhavi, I have given you a Mahakaleshwar, which is the master of time. And I have told you, do not worry, your husband is with me. And there was a picture of Baba and her husband in the lingam. Another lingam came, and you could see Shirdi Sai Baba in it. So these were the kinds of things that I experienced in the party with Rosamond. It was so humbling and just beautiful. Once again, do we need the miracles? People say, don't get focused on the miracles, go further. That's true. There's so much more, but I tell you, what deepens your faith more as a physical being than seeing something physical come out of nothing? What makes you know that Baba is all that he says he is and more? For me, these are the kinds of things that have opened my heart to Baba even more. This was another time, and it was quite questionable. At least some of the men, the Nepalese men went, why is Baba blessing her so much? I got more vibhuti. I was laying down in the room. I was very tired after puja, and Baba put more vibhuti in my hair. So it became quite a subject of discussion. They told me to ask for Rosamond. She's just like, oh, Baba's blessing me. But Baba knew. He was encouraging me. Step forward. Tell what I have allowed you to experience. That's all he was doing. It wasn't that I was special. It was, if he gives you the experience, no one can take that from you. No one can ever change what Baba has given you when it's you and Baba. No one can tell you it didn't happen. No one can tell you the logic behind it. And who knows what else is estimated in the heart when Baba does these kinds of things. Baba doesn't do anything just for the heck of it. We know that. So I don't know the extent of what Baba gives us when he allows us to experience these kinds of miracles. And this was a pendant that came in Rosamond's hand in the party as she was clapping during legends. It was gold and diamonds. But this was the biggie. I had taken my printed out copy of Rosamond, 22 Weeks with Divinity, with me to the party, and I was hoping that Baba would bless it. I knew that Baba was in the wheelchair and all of the Leela that he had going on with that, but I simply still hoped maybe with Rosamond something would happen. Well, it was becoming very clear to me that Baba was not going to call us for an interview. And so I said to Rosamond, I said, well, maybe we should offer it on the altar, the small altar that was there. And she did her head the way that I guess meant, yeah, yes, you know. And she told a couple of the young ladies to totally clean that room, clean the bedroom, because that altar was in a bedroom where there was a couple of cots. And so they changed the sheets, they mopped the floor, door. It was this whole pleading for Baba. And I remember Rameshji was there, Govindaram, who Baba has written on the Divine Facts, was Barosama's brother in a previous lifetime. Barosama's mother was there. This lady Bhima was there, this lady. And so the room was cleaned, and Barosama told me to offer the manuscript. I wanted her to offer the manuscript. And so I'm like, okay, I'll offer it. Now they're sitting in a room waiting for me to offer the manuscript. So everybody's looking at me, and I'm thinking, oh my God, Baba. And I took the manuscript, and I took it over to the altar, and I knelt down, and I'm thinking, Baba, what can I say? I'm supposed to pray to you. What can I say, Baba? You know I didn't write it for money. You know I didn't write it for fame. I wrote it because you wanted me to write it. And I didn't have a long prayer. I just said that, and I offered it, and I put it down. I got up. I took no more than 4 steps away from the altar. And Barosama, who was sitting, maybe 9 feet away from me, at that, she put her hand over her heart. She said, Baba is here. Oh my gosh.